Touchdown!
Cameras have always been a hobby of mine. I consider myself more of a video creator than I am a photographer, but I love to do photography when I get the chance to do so. I also love sports, specifically the game of football, which I played growing up. Lately, I've been seeing a lot of fire content being put out by creators covering the sports world. And I'm not talking about TV, I'm talking about creators on social media covering my favorite athletes and my favorite sports. This has sparked an interest in me to try it out myself. Today, I'm going to tell you about my experience shooting sports with the Sony 70-200 F2.8 G Master. I don't own any lenses that I can shoot sports with. I do have this guy, which is the Sigma 24-70. I did practice with this the other day, and then I realized it's not going to give me the shots that I want on game day. This guy, on the other hand, is a very expensive camera lens. And if you're wondering if I went out there and dropped 3 racks on a camera lens for something that I've never tried before, come on, I wouldn't do anything like that. I did the smart thing and found a place to rent it instead. So let me tell you why I picked this lens. Since I'm renting this lens, I wanted to try the best of the best to make sure that I wasn't limited with anything that I wanted to do out on the field. And I wanted a lens that was known for being a high-performing, powerful workhorse for sports videographers and photographers. So let's break down the key features that'll help me out on game day. First is the autofocus. One of the main reasons I chose this lens is because of its lightning-fast autofocus capabilities. Next is optical steady shot with sport mode. This means that I can keep my shots steady and sharp even in the most challenging shooting conditions. The lens also has a focus limiter setting, specifically the 3-meter option, is going to improve my autofocus performance by preventing the lens from hunting for focus on nearby objects, and instead, focusing on my subjects who will be a distance away. Another standout benefit of this lens is the aperture ring, which means I don't have to fumble through the camera's buttons to adjust the aperture setting. I also rented out the 2-time teleconverter. This is going to double the focal length to 140-400 and get me closer to the action. The filter thread on the camera is 77mm, and I also rented out a variable ND filter, which will help me maintain exposure if it gets too bright outside. So let's talk about the monkey in the room when it comes to this lens. Sony also offers a f4 telephoto lens, which is significantly cheaper than this f2.8 Mark II. The key difference is the f4 versus the 2.8. With f2.8, you're going to have better low light performance. Now, if you're just shooting video, f4 is probably going to be good enough, but since I'm going to be doing some videos also and some stills, I think it's going to be awesome to have that f2.8 to have that shallow depth of field. On the field, I decided to position myself between the goal line and the 20-yard line, and sometimes I stood at the back of the end zone. This gave me a vantage point where I could have different shots, such as being in front of the play, on the side, or corner view. For video, I shot on f4 in 24 FPS and 120 FPS. I shoot at 120 FPS so I can slow down my footage in post to 20%. Being on the opposite end of the field away from the action, the 200 still got me close enough, but still wide enough to view the entire play. And when I put the 2-time teleconverter on, that got me really close to the action. The teleconverter also doubled the aperture to 5.6, and I noticed my footage was more shaky. My research afterwards tells me it might be directly related to the doubling of the aperture, which results in a decrease of light coming in. In terms of shooting, the autofocus was pretty good. It seemed to be pretty quick to get on focus. I did observe it hunting, but it tracked my distant subject pretty well. I felt that the zoom ring on the lens was incredibly smooth. It made it really easy to change focal lengths during the action, and the focus limiter 3-meter setting worked as I expected. A couple times I had the ref walk into my frame, but it didn't cause my subject to get out of focus. Overall, I was pretty happy with how some of these key camera features worked out for me. So I want to wrap this up talking about my experience getting to shoot the game. Football is a really fast-paced sport, and like in sports, there are no retries. You gotta be dialed in, you gotta be focused, and if you're not, no pun intended, you're gonna miss your shot. So next time I get an opportunity, I'm gonna come more prepared. This means more research, more shot lists, and a better grasp on the variables that I wish I controlled. As for the debate of an f4 versus an f2.8, it really comes down to what your needs are. I'm primarily a video shooter, so for me, I'd probably lean towards buying the f4. Overall, I'm just really grateful that I took the opportunity to try out something new. You'll never know how good you can be at something unless you go out there and make it happen. So if I can end this on a positive note, my advice would be to go out there, be fearless, try out something new, and open up more creative doors for yourself. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you saw today, please hit that like button, hit subscribe if you want to stay up to date with new content, follow me on social media, and lastly, go out there, be creative, and have fun doing it.